What is up? How's it going?
Hey, what is going on, man?
Joined with Night from the Nightwatch Zone, man. Hopefully having a good day, good Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, and this is a good day to do a conversation on a movie like this, because I think when you talk about horror anthologies and this being a really good one, you have so much that you can pick, from this one movie, all these mini stories. So this is a great day to do it.
Right. Well, hell yeah, man. And I really enjoyed doing this. Like I said, first I did, let's see, I did the Tales from the Crypt movie, the 1972, and I did that with Chris. And then for
Mm-hmm.
my second one, I did Creep Show 2 with Ninja because that's his favorite. So, I always let the guests, choose whichever one they want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
then this being the third one, man, and you chose Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, man. And
Yeah,
it's
man.
definitely cool. A
Agreed.
star-studded lineup, man.
Yeah, it is.
People that were even some of them weren't even stars yet. I do believe they said this was Julianne Moore's first film.
Yes, yes, and I love Julianne Moore too, man. And
Yeah,
seeing her in this and the role that she played, I mean, it was really cool stuff, man. That's the thing about when you talk about horror anthologies and a lot of these actors that um, take on this as a project, they get to play these interesting roles that you may not always get to see them, do again. Because, unfortunately, Julianne Moore, talking about her specifically, she hasn't done a lot in horror. Obviously, she was great in Hannibal.
yeah,
But she hasn't really dipped her toe too much in horror since Tales from the Dark Side.
yeah. She got kind of the raw deal of that too, man, because she did a really good job as Clarice Starling. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
she was following somebody who just won an Oscar for it.
Yeah, I
So it's
mean,
like,
yeah, I mean, imagine if they did Hannibal and they had somebody replace Anthony. It's like that
right,
that would just suck for them, and it was unfortunate for Julianne, but I thought she was great at it, and that's coming from someone who loves Jodie Foster. Like Jodie Foster is one of my favorite actresses ever,
yeah,
ever,
yeah,
and I still was able to enjoy Julianne Moore for what she did as Clarice.
yeah. I commend her guts for even attempting it because
Hmm.
that took a lot, man.
Hmm.
Um, you got a really cool back wrap around with this one too, man. You got of course Blondie, Deborah Harry, and you got
Mm.
a younger Lawrence brother, Matthew Lawrence, in the wrap around with a really fun and little play on the Hansel and Gretel thing.
Mhm.
Um, then of course you got just like we saw about Julianne Moore and Steve Buscemi and Christian Slater in the first story, and then the
Yep.
second one you got the old singer of the New York Dolls, actually, the punk group, the punk rock kind of punk metal group, the New York Dolls, and
Mhm.
Liam Hickey, which we've seen a lot of things. And then the last one,
Yep.
of course, Radon Chong, and yeah. So yeah, very very cool, man. I watched this earlier today, so I
Mhm.
checked it out with my fiance, and we enjoyed it. She she could definitely see. She said that she agrees with you with your choice of doing the first and the third because her favorite's the gargoyle too. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how the stories, work because I think when you get to that point with Lover's Vow, it's kind of like it's just pulling all these things together, you know what I mean, as far as just the story, the drama, has a little bit of the romance angle, still has some campiness a little bit, but it's like a culmination, and I remember
yeah,
seeing it as a kid. I think when I saw it as a kid, I think it was like on HBO or something like that.
yeah,
And I was in the basement, so that's where we watched a lot of movies, and that's where I watched a lot of my horror as a kid. And I was fixated on it. I just, when I watched this movie, and yeah, it's a great memory, man. And especially like we were saying backstage, this movie follows in the footsteps of other great anthologies and shows like Twilight Zone and all those great shows. So yeah, it's cool.
yeah, definitely. This came out in 1990 when I was 17, so it was kind of at the latter end of some of those. You know,
Hmm.
I grew up watching the Night Gallery and that pilot movie. I grew up watching the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah.
Of course, Creep Show. And Creepshow 2 came out in '87, and like I said, this was in '90. So this was like the tail end of that first era of those.
Yep.
An interesting choice here, man, because she had just come off what about 5, well, maybe 6 or 7 years earlier. Deborah Harry had done Videodrome, which is
Yes,
not
Videodrome.
not one of my favorite Cronenbergs, but she is the one thing that I do like it.
Yeah.
And the way she comes off in this, man, is just so monotone. It's like she's like a true psychopath. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yep, I totally agree. She is very scary, you know what I'm saying? Because she is just this is a regular Tuesday for her dealing with this little kid, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
that makes you sit back and say, "Wow, what what she's really capable of doing." And Deborah was great in this. I truly wish that she had the chance to do, more in the genre because I think she has a certain I mean, she obviously has wonderful charisma and capability anyways from her music career, but it truly did translate well on screen for acting.
Yeah, yeah. She was a multi-talented woman, really.
Yeah.
Ben Grimm says she makes a good stew. Yeah, I'll I'll go ahead and start dipping into this if you're ready, man.
Sure.
But yeah, matter of fact, it opens up with her. And it's like a nice little small town, but not real small. But you know what I mean. It looked kind of almost rustic. Um,
Mhm.
you got the nice music playing, and she's coming out of a store. It looks like a floral shop, and she's crossing the street. You got the music playing nicely, and you got the credits. She's got some flowers in her hand. She's smelling them. She gets into her Deep Cherokee, and she drives all around. You see her going all around. This is every place looks nice. Like there's that's how you can tell this is not exactly a bigger town because it
Mhm.
doesn't seem like there's any really neighborhoods that would be in a bigger like worse neighborhoods that like be in a bigger city.
Yeah.
Um, so but she just seems really pleasant. Um, and then right as she pulls into her driveway, it gives you a shot from inside the house. And you think she's coming in this door over here because you see a doorknob turning and everything. So you're like, well, she can't even get her into her own place. But then she walks in her back door, the door directly in front of you. So then, immediately makes you think. And I remember seeing it the first time. I immediately thought, what the hell's going on there with that then? Because I expect her to come in that door with the knob turning.
Right.
Well, she goes in and sits down the groceries and all that kind of stuff. Phone rings, she picks it up, and you can tell she's planning some kind of a dinner. She's talking to another lady, and she's saying talking about her husband, and they're going to go over, and she says, "Oh, I did forget one thing though. You might want to bring some champagne." Um, I guess she likes to have that with dinner guests. Um,
Mhm.
he hangs up the phone, turns around, opens up the door, and then that's when you find out what the jiggling was going on. Um,
Mhm.
it almost looks like almost like a dungeon or a or like a cage or some kind of bars. I remember seeing it as a kid thing. It looks kind of like a jail, but now
Mhm.
it looks more like a dungeon. Um,
Yeah, it looks old.
she looks down. There's a mess on the floor. She's like, "Look at this mess. I thought you loved chocolate chip cookies. What happened to that book I gave you?" And now you can see it is a dungeon cell. It's got stone walls and everything.
Mm.
Um, then a big book comes and flies and hits the doors of it and hits the ground. She reaches in, grabs it, and it says "Tales from the Dark Side." She says, "When I was a little girl, this was my favorite book. Which one was your favorite story?" And a little boy comes out of nowhere, and he's chained to the wall around his wrist. Um, he just come like out of the shadows. Um, Steps out there. And he says, "What's the difference? What does it matter? What difference does it make? Let me out of here! Help!" He's screaming, "Help! Help! Help!" And she calmly says, "It's been so long, I can't even remember them." Talking about the stories.
Yeah.
She goes over to the oven, and she says, the kid looks concerned as he asks, "What are you doing?" She says, "Oh, I'm just preheating to 350." The kid screams again. He says, "Help!" Says, "There's a crazy woman in here, and she's gonna cook me. She's going to eat me." She calmly, she just calmly just kicks back, and she grabs a note, and she's figuring out, how many times does 12 go into 75? Well, the kid, for some reason, immediately starts figuring it out. He says,
Yeah.
oh well, there's 6 times, 3 left over. Why? She's like, well, there is an hour for evisceration. Well, at 12 minutes a pound would have to be in the oven by 1:30. She starts describing to him how he's got to how she's got to gut him first, and how she has to make a slit here, and so that she can stuff him basically. And then I'm going to sew it back together with one of these, and it's a block full of needles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as she pulls the towel off of it, he freaks out, and she says, maybe I should get started now. And the kid says, no, wait, there's plenty of time. You said it's your favorite book. Do you want to hear a story? She said, is this a love story? He says, not really, but you'll like it a lot. Um, so he starts thumbing through the pages like vigorously, like he's desperate to find this story. And then the kid says, it's about these college guys, and one of them is poor, so he works his way through school selling things. And then we lead off into the very first story of Lot 249.
Mm. Yeah, man, it's a great beginning because you don't know what to expect at first because you see her doing all the prep, and like you said earlier, she's kind of withdrawn in the sense that she's just going through a regular typical day. We as viewers are thinking that she's really preparing for something that's, kind of a regular get together,
Right.
but we come to find out she has a little boy there getting him prepared to be eaten. It's crazy. Um, the thing that I really enjoyed about Lot 249 is, kind of the buildup of it. It starts off setting it up because you have Christian Slater and his buddy, and they're obviously very well to do, kind of, yuppie-ish and so forth. So it fits right into that time period of, the 80s and the early 90s. And
Yuppies.
yeah, yuppies, exactly. That's exactly what they are. And Christian Slater, first of all, he's always been a favorite actor of mine. But they're talking about this guy Bellingham who got cheated out of a grant, a scholarship, I should say. And you come to find out that he's a friend of theirs, but he's also the type of person that, gets taken advantage of, so to speak. And it's basically a scheme that was hatched by Christian Slater's friend and his sister, who was played by Julianne Moore. And I think the beginning of this, it was really cool because this conversation between these two guys, these two friends, it just seems like this is just, again, their everyday, cheating someone out of a scholarship, which is a huge thing. I mean, they're well to do, they're yuppies, so they have money.
Yeah,
But
so they had to work to get in there to begin with a scholarship even.
that's
Because he
right.
couldn't afford to get in there any other way, and then they don't feel one bit bad about fucking him. That's terrible. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, because, Christian Slater is a really, really, really good actor. And when you come to meet who Bellingham is, who's Steve Buscemi, who I think he's such a fantastic character actor. Like he just has a certain charisma, and he's so believable in this role of this very eccentric yet very intelligent guy, Bellingham. And he shows that he's upset about, not being able to get the scholarship in a way that's kind of like, man, what is he planning something? Seems like he may have something up his sleeve. And he's just so nonchalant. And so then he was telling the two guys, well, it's okay. And he gets this shipment, he has this huge box. And as a viewer, you're thinking, well, what is it? You have no idea, the first
Right.
time you see it, the first time I saw it. And so he opens it up, and it's a mummy, and I'm thinking to myself when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, this is great. It's like a monster. And anyways, this whole scene, which plays probably for a good, 10 minutes, was just so cool because he's he's basically spooking them, Christian Slater and his buddy. His buddy's like, I got to get out of here. He's like, I'm not going to deal with this type of thing. And Christian Slater has this curiosity, and Christian Slater is basically us as the
Yeah.
audience. We're watching the movie, and Christian is kind of through Christian Slater's eyes. And so, anyways, and his name is Andy. And so he's like, well, why do you have it? and then of course, Bellingham is like, well, you want to take a look, and they're looking into it, and it looks great. Again, this is, back when you have practical work, things are really there. It's not CGI. The mummy looks old and rotted. Looks like it's almost like you can smell it. And when they get to that point where
Ooh,
they pull out all the flowers and all that inside of the mummy, it's a great scene, man. It's like a great setup.
he asked him to
And
pull it open. Here, give
yeah,
me a hand and hold this open. He's like, what? He's hold this open. He's just like,
yes. Yeah, he's like turning his head from it. Yeah, it's so cool, man. I really, really love it. But what Christian Slater, who plays Andy, doesn't know is that Bellingham, his whole game plan is to reanimate the mummy and use it to murder them, you know? And so it's a really cool setup. And this is just the beginning of this segment. It's a really cool setup that gives you a great starting point for the story. Um, and then the thing that was really cool is you bring in Julianne Moore, who's playing Susan. Um, and she is a yuppie as well. She doesn't really seem that she cares that a man was just cheated out of the scholarship and so forth. So then she has this big old plan uh to frame him with that Zuni fetish, that little statue. And that
cool.
was a really cool plot point too, because she was basically using her her body, and her charms to kind of woo him so that she could get one over on Bellingham. And that was really cool too, man. I thought Julianne Moore was great in this role. She was devilish.
Yes.
She was absolutely devilish. But um yeah, I mean, it was a great movie. And when you get to the point where Bellingham reanimates the mummy with the scroll, and he's reading the words and all that, it's kind of like, wow, this is really going to happen. And it takes a story that's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty realistic. I mean, these types of things do happen, and all of a sudden it takes it into that supernatural realm, because when the mummy is reanimated, it's kind of like, oh no, this is not going to be good. And one of my favorite scenes too is when the mummy goes to murder Susan's boyfriend, Andy's best friend. And when he does it, he has this one of those old metal coat hangers that he opens up. And by the way, this scene, as far as well as the whole movie, but there's a lot of great cinematography, because like you get to see the mummy, but he's also like in the shadows at this point. It's not like full on, but it's in a way to make him really creepy. But he opens up this coat hanger, and it's like, what is he gonna do with that? And he grabs the best friend of Andy, and he sticks the coat hanger up his nose, and he's pulling out his brain, which of course was a callback to a scene earlier when Bellingham was explaining how they
Right.
removed the brain, from the mummies. So it was so well done, man. It was creepy. The cinematography was great. And anyway, after that, you have Susan, who finds, her boyfriend, and then the mummy comes for Susan as well. And I was like, wow, man, what's going to happen? And the mummy is like standing off with Susan. And yeah, it doesn't end well for her. And worst off, is that when he kills her, he stuffs the flowers. She has flowers in there, and he stuffs the flowers inside of her abdominal cavity. So again, it's like all these callbacks to how mummies
Well, she's
were
alive.
treated.
You stuff at her.
Yes, yes. And even though, you don't have like a ton of gore and blood and guts, the way it's shot and so forth, it really, your mind does all the work for you. It's very well done, and it's intense, and of course these actors are great. So all of this happens, and then you got Andy, Christian Slater's character, who knows what happened. He put two and two together, and so he kidnaps Steve Buscemi's character, Bellingham. And that was a great scene. So it's like this face off between these two great actors. And basically, at this point, Christian Slater is able to be kind of like that unhinged Christian
Right.
Slater. And I love it when he plays these types of characters, because he's pissed off, you
Yeah.
know? his sister and his best friend were killed by this mummy, and so he wants to enact revenge. But what
Right.
was really neat is that they're both smart, Christian Slater and Steve Buscemi's character. So Steve Buscemi calls the mummy because it's like these words that you have to recite from the scroll to reanimate the mummy.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be bad for Christian Slater. And Christian Slater is so kind of on the edge and unhinged that he's just like, whatever. And he cuts at the mummy, so he's handicapped. His leg, he saws it off. He's like one of those old school electric knives,
Yes.
like from back in the day. And he just cuts at the mummy. The mummy's crawling and trying to grab at Christian Slater. Christian Slater just moves out of the way while he's still like berating Steve Buscemi's character and just cuts him up. I'm like, well, is that simple?
Yeah. Some leg, kick some arm, and then start sawing at the head, and he's just like,
Yeah, saws at the head. Yeah. And Steve Buscemi, really thought it was over for him. And they basically it gets to the point where Andy isn't able to kill him. He considers it, but at the end of the day, he can't bring himself to really kill Bellingham. But this is what's great about not only this segment, but this whole movie and movies like it. You have a twist or you have something that happens that you don't expect. Because I sure as hell didn't expect this. I don't know if you did, but Bellingham says, "Well, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna get out of your hair. You'll never see me again," and so forth. So he's in a taxi cab, and he's got a scroll. He switched the scrolls because when
yeah,
Andy said, "Hey, I'll let you go," but I'm gonna burn up this scroll, and Buscemi was basically like, "Don't do that. It's priceless," and so forth and so forth. So Andy thought he was getting rid of the scroll that controlled the mummy. Come to find out, when Bellingham is in the taxi cab, he had switched the scrolls. So he says the words, and the taxi driver is, that was a cool little thing. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, nothing much. And so at the end of the movie, you basically have a reanimated the boyfriend of Susan and Susan coming to her brother and basically like Bellingham sends his regards. And it's
yeah,
like, oh no. So there's two mummies, basically
yeah,
coming after Christian Slater at the end, and then basically just fades. And it's like, oh my gosh. It was such a,
yeah.
it was like three different twists in the movie, or in the segment, I should say. And it was really well done. I love
And it
this
was,
one.
to me, it was kind of like a callback to the one that tied you over from Creep Show almost. You know what I mean? With the two,
Yes.
it's almost like
Hmm.
to it.
Yeah,
And,
all this back and forth, and then a twist, and then another twist outdoes that, and then another twist outdoes that. It's really
mm,
well done.
yeah, you talking about the cinematography. One of my favorite parts of cinematography is when the mummy is already in there before it kills the first guy with the up the nose, the best friend and the boyfriend. And
Hmm.
it comes across here. It goes from here to here. It comes across, and you can see the mummy getting the wire rip. And then it comes
Yeah.
over to right here. You just see it. Just
Yes.
really goes across there when he's getting it ready. So you already
Yeah.
know what he's up to. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. It looks so cool. And again, it's so well done, and it's not a lot of blood and guts or gore, but it's it's effective. It's
Yeah.
very, very effective. So, yeah.
That was originally actually going to be the third story. The way they had it to begin with was the Lover's Vow was first, and then the Cat from Hell, and
Hmm.
then the Lot 249.
Hmm.
I'm glad that they switched it because to me the Lover's Vow really feels like it culminates it all together.
Yeah, I agree.
They
Absolutely.
they did like they did like a premiere of it or something, and it didn't hit as well. But then they switched it and did a premiere again, and people were like, "Hell yeah!"
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I absolutely agree.
but we go back into the wraparound, and you got Deborah Harry's character saying, "Antiques are so fascinating," and you told that very well. My goodness, it's almost 1 o'clock. We got to get things started. And the kid's like, "No, hold on, wait a minute." says she opens up the oven, and this long ass rack covered with aluminum foil, like it just seems to keep going, opens and slides out, and she turns around and says, looking for what, dear? And the kid says, well, wait till I tell you another story. I haven't told you the best one yet. I had to stop. I had to stop twice because it got me so scared. It's about this old man, and his name is Drogan. She said, "Okay, but this will be the last story." And then we go into the Cat from Hell. And like I said, this is the one that's got the old singer of. You see, at one point he was Buster Poindexter. He was
Yeah.
back in the '70s. He was the lead singer of New York Dolls.
Hmm.
He's done a lot, man. He Scrooge, all these shows he fit in. But he also got William Hickey, which the one thing I knew William Hickey from the most was one episode of Tales from the Crypt, the one
Yeah.
where he gives up ends up giving up all of his money to have a younger body.
Yes, I remember that one. Yep.
Yeah, that's got a really cool twist too. But yeah, um, taxi pulls up and this dude, this slick looking obnoxious dude gets out, and and he's just there looking around, and he's like, here, Holston, here, and he says, tell the driver to wait. Well, he tells him, and tells him to take his time. Meanwhile, you could tell that something is watching from, what I mean. You could tell because you get like this black and white shot, so you could tell that
Hmm.
something's watching. Um, the old man is in a wheelchair by the fireplace, and he says, I want you to make a hit. So he's like, how'd you get my name? And he's like, you know a guy named Soul Loja? And Holston's asked, okay, so who do you want hit? Well, this is when it blows his mind. He says, your victim is right behind you. He turns around real quick and whips out a switchblade. And he sees a cat. He thinks it's a joke. He's making a total joke out of it. Grogan says,
Right.
sit Holston. And
Mr. Halston.
yeah, Mr. Halston, and look in that envelope. That's $50,000, and there'll be another 50. Would you bring me proof that the cat is dead? And Holston, he's blown away. He's blown away by what he's hearing. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? You hired me to kill a cat? And he tells me the cat had killed 3 people in this house. And so he starts explaining, and he says there used to be 4 people living here. And it was him and his sister, her sister's friend, and another dude named Richard Gage. And he's been with them almost 20 years. And they just kind of lived this existence as miserable rich people. He said, then the cat. And so he's still listening to him. He says, first Gage tried to scare it off, but then it kept coming back. His sister and her friend took it in. The little kitty cat, the poor little baby, the poor little kitty, but he was still trying to get rid of it anyway. He hates this fucking cat. Well, the way he puts it is, no, I don't hate cats. They hate me. So, he's like, so then they get into this discussion about where the money comes from. He says, you know who I am? He says, yeah, you're Drogan Pharmaceutical. And he's like, yeah. So he names up all these different kind of drugs. Meanwhile, you can still see the cat walking. Cat's looking around. It's checking them out. And I love how, because the way they always say animals can see in black and white. So yeah, it's listening to him the whole time, and you get the idea that this cat can understand what they're talking about. Like, it totally gets it. Says anyway, he goes back to talking about. So then he discusses with Halston, which is the hitman, that he knows at least 2 dozen hits that he's done. And so that he goes on telling about he goes into a flashback. And he told Halston about the history. Sister was the first to die. He tripped her. She went down the stairs. And then a friend took the cat in to protect it, to get away from him, because he was wanting to kill it, and ended up smothering her. And then he was going to have Gage get rid of it and take it to the vet, but then it caused him to crash and get killed too. And he said a week later the cat was back. The whole time, still the cat's still listening and hiding. He says this is the reason he's being punished, because of a drug called Tridormal G, and it's because he had tested on like 5,000 cats.
Yes.
So Holston makes a joke about it. Yeah, he's just like, oh, this poor little kitty. He's sitting there, and he's petting the cat. It's sitting there, and he was like, yeah, you're just gonna give me the money now. I could do it right now. I could just put this. Well, this is what you get the idea. This cat's really smart, man. The cat's like, no, fuck you. It scratches and takes off. And Drogon's like, see, you know, but just see that you get it done. It's not gonna be as easy as you think, but see that you get it done.
Right.
And chop off his tail, burn it, get rid of it, bring his tail to show me, so I can throw the tail in the fire too. Full time the cat's watching. Olsen says, well, he takes off. Olsen says, well, it's just you and me, cat. So he starts laying out all of his hitman tools on there, all his different knives, all this fancy different shit. This guy's supposedly never blown a hit ever. And
right.
so he knows this cat is any kind of a threat at all. It's no big deal. Makes himself a drink, makes a comment about how the rich guys never get to good liquor. While he's in there putting ice in his cup, the cat jumps and attacks him from behind. And he's like, nobody gets me from behind. Nobody gets me from behind. He takes his drink, goes in the next room. He sees he's got blood on his sleeve. He's bleeding from back here. He says, $100 shirt. He said, that's it, kitty cat. Loads up his syringe with whatever that shit is. I'm not sure. But the cat's still stalking him. And it's like I said, it's like he understands what he's saying.
Yeah.
Well, he starts, he says, well, I can't get hot. The second you get hot, so you get pissed off, you blow it. I gotta get myself together. He starts shooting some pool, hanging out and everything, and he's not shooting pool 10 seconds before the cat jumps in and attacks him again. So then he gets the gun. He's and I just think that this is really cool because it's like he's hired to come in there and stalk and kill the cat. The whole time the cat is stalking him.
Right.
Actually, the cat's playing with him.
Yeah. Yes. It's like the cat is the hitman. You know what I mean?
The cat's going to be there. That's just the way it's going to be. Yeah. Well, he gets the gun together. He sits down. And he's watch some TV. Which after the cat had got me that many times, I don't think I would have done that. I would have been on my toes, man.
Yeah.
But he gets the beat right on him, shoots at him, he ends up blowing up the TV. It comes from underneath the table, attacks him again. He shoots the grandfather clock. The grandfather clock pulls up. Who knows how old and expensive this grandfather clock is? And then I think it really clicks to him. It really clicks to Holston because he sees, because he's had him lined up 2 different times and didn't hit him either time, but he knows he should have because he's good at his job. He's got over 24 hits and has never even come close to blowing it.
Right.
He's up on the grandfather clock and stalking him. He's like, motherfucker, this is it. Jumps off and practically jumps down his throat from the grandfather clock. And the effects are really cool. The K&B team, Berger and Robert Kurtzman and Greg Nicotero. They were going to originally, actually, Dick Smith. They had hired Dick Smith as a consultant to begin with, and Dick Smith's idea was, let's each do a different segment. Like, I'll do one, you guys do another, we'll get somebody else to do another one. But once he's seen, K&B was still new at this time, Nicotero and all them. So once he's seen their work, he said, what do you guys need me for? And he bowed out. So, I seen a behind the scenes thing on it where they showed the head part and the cat sticking out here.
Yeah.
And how it was just a whole, like a prosthetic that fit right there. And it was really cool. Anyway, the cat crawls down his throat. You can see it going down through here. It goes into the stomach. Well, of course, the hitman, this badass hitman, dies. Well, next morning, Drogon shows back up, comes in, and you can tell it's daylight. He probably stayed in a hotel or something. Comes in, he's like, "Oh my God, you're kidding me!" No way. Then you can see the stomach moving, and through here, and then up through the throat, and then the cat comes out again, and hops up in his lap. So the cat's decided, "I've had it with you, motherfucker. You're hiring people to get rid of me now. You're done." So he can pick out some of his drugs and pop some of those pills before he can. He has a heart attack and dies. William Hickey is so good, man. He did shit all the way back in the day. You see some shit that he did way back. Yeah. Let me see. Prince's Honor. I don't remember him in Christmas Vacation.
Yes, he was the grandfather, the one with the toupee. who
Okay.
when he lit the cigar. I can't remember exactly how it went, but he blew up, the living room and stuff, and then he had, soot
Yeah.
all over his face. But he was funny. He was like when they were at the table eating the dinner and talking to the grandmother and saying, do you want to say grace? And she's like, what? Because she could never
Yeah.
hear really well. And he's like, the blessing, So he
Yeah.
was he was he was great, and his voice is amazing. When you hear his voice, you know exactly who he is.
Also, Mark Margolis was in this. He played Gage, and oh my God, this dude, man, Mark
Mm,
Margolis has been in everything. A lot of
mm-hmm,
shit. I love him and everything he's done. He was in Oz back in the day. He did Better Call Saul. He did
mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad. He did Scarface. I mean, this guy, Mark Margolis is great. He just died like a year or so ago. So that
Yeah.
shame. Mark Margolis can play anything. He,
Yep.
he was fantastic. I would like to have seen him a little bit more. I'd like to see him play Batman.
Mm, yep.
But yeah, that's really good story. That one's my favorite. I like the gargoyle and everything, but the cat from hell is my favorite.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it pops back into the wraparound, and she has this thing. Deborah Harry in this one has this thing. I was saying, my goodness. She always starts with, my goodness,
Yeah.
that was a scary story. But my favorites are the love story. The kid says, hey, there's a really scary story that's a love story too. And she says, you still got to cook for quite a while, but I'd love to hear the story. So he gets one more chance. And then it goes into James Remar and Radon Chong.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And yeah, man. And hey, Miss C, how's it going? Miss C's in the chat. Long time no see to you too.
Hey,
Wow.
Joseph. Hey,
Yeah.
Missy, how you
All,
guys doing?
all you guys. Yeah, like you're saying, it leads into Lover's Vow, which if I'm not mistaken, that's the longest segment. I think it's like 32 minutes long. And you can definitely feel that, you know what I mean, in a good way, because
Yeah,
they're able to really flesh out this story about this struggling artist and what he goes through. And what I love about this part too, this is my favorite segment.
it's good.
What I love about it is, and I know this sounds so cliche, but I'm sure you know what I mean. It feels like it, and all of these segments do this, but I'm speaking specifically about Lover's Vow. It really feels like it transports you to that place. It opens up with James Remar, who is another
Mhm.
fantastic character actor.
Definitely.
He's usually playing really despicable, evil guys, bad guys. And it was
48 hours. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and it was interesting to see him just play a regular person. He wasn't like a villain or a killer or whatever. And um it opens up and you're in a city, and you get the bright lights, it's at nighttime, and it again, cinematography is really good. Like
Yes.
when you're watching this, you can definitely see that there's a lot of care as far as the sets and the camera work and the places where they're shooting and all this. But anyways, it opens up with James Remar's character, who his name is Preston, and he's a struggling artist, and he's working in his studio, and he's working on some type of project or whatever. And he's not even around another character at this point, but you already know so much about him because of, obviously James Remar is a great actor. You can tell that he's struggling, you can tell that he has a talent and so forth, but they make sure they let you know that
It's his
in his
face.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. His face says so much.
Yeah, he's good at conveying any kind of feeling he wants you to have just by the looks on his face,
Mhm.
just with his eyes. He acts with his eyes a lot.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yep, absolutely, man. And he's struggling on this work that he's doing, and he's ripping apart his project, and he's taking his head and bringing it down to his desk, and he's all dejected and whatever. And what I love too is while they're showing that in his studio, there's this skylight that looks above in this camera. It's a really good shot where it's kind of like showing right around his neighborhood and across the way. There's this gargoyle, this stone gargoyle on the neighboring building that it looks beautiful, but so creepy, and it's kind of peering down
Yeah.
as if it's, you know, a god from above, but it's like peering right down into his skylight where he's sitting there struggling and he's upset because he just doesn't have any inspiration. The look of the gargoyle as well is really well done. It has
Yeah.
this look on its face that looks like it's uh, maybe sad. So, and
Yeah.
of course, all of this plays out through this segment. And we'll get to that. But, anyways, back to Preston. So he's a struggling artist, and he gets a call from his agent, and his agent is basically like, "Hey, we got to meet, we got to talk, and so forth." So he goes to it's basically like a local bar a few blocks away from his house, and it's played by Robert Klein. I think it's Robert Klein,
Yes.
um, who is another great character actor. And he's
Yeah.
basically saying to Preston that his work is unpopular. It's not selling, he's lost his touch, he's at the end of his road and all of that. And again, this is a scene where they take the time to really um layer these characters, and especially for Preston, so that you get invested in him quick. And you really do. At least me, especially when I first saw this
Yeah.
as a
Feel for him.
kid. Yeah, exactly. You really feel for him. Um and so he basically says, "I can't represent you anymore." He's basically firing his client. His client
Yeah.
is at the lowest of lows, and he's basically like, "I'm sorry, buddy. I can't represent you anymore. I'm done with you." And it's like, wow, this guy is really he's got nothing. Is basically the setup for
Yeah.
Preston as a character in the beginning of this segment. So, anyways, so he starts drinking. He's so dejected, and he's trying to drink his troubles away. And again, James Remar is really good with this type of a role and I think it's because he's always been able to play dark roles. Characters that have bad intentions and so forth. And not that he does right now, but he's obviously going down a dark path because his life, for him, anyways, is losing all of its meaning. He has no artistic inspiration. His friend and agent has just dumped him, which means he's not going to get any money or he doesn't have a job. And here he is drinking his troubles away. So he decides to leave, and he's leaving with this buddy, and they're walking down this dark alley. And as soon as they start doing that, you know that there's going to be trouble. You just know it.
Yeah.
Um, Preston goes off to the side relieve himself because there's no bathroom around. And all of a sudden, you hear this noise, and his friend is like, "What is that?" And his friend is like, saying, "Well, let me see what it is." His friend has a gun, and all you see are like just a little bit of the what we come to find out are wings. We don't know
Yeah.
what it is at this point, but some monster comes up to him. The guy shoots at the monster, and all you see is something swipe at Preston's friend's hand. You have no idea what happened. And then in the next shot of the movie by Preston, you see the hand cut
Yeah.
off with the gun still in it. And it's like,
Just, just when he's finished and taking a whiz. Yeah. It's like,
yeah. Yeah, and so and again, practical work looks very good for 1990, very believable. And so you're like, "Oh man," and all you see is his friend getting slashed in the face, and he's got this huge, I guess you could say this is where we get some gore
yeah.
in the movie, because Cat from Hell and this have those moments. So
Yeah.
you see this big slash on the guy's face, even his eye is kind
Yeah.
of looks like it's ripped out. And Preston is like, "What's going on?" In other words, whatever's attacking his friend, you can't even see it, because it doesn't want to be seen. And
Yeah.
so his friend is like, "Help me, help me." And then all of a sudden, boom, something like basically just chops his head off, clean off. You see the head
Yeah.
just go just like that and tumble onto the floor. And again, this is where James Remar was so good in this role because his reaction is like, "Oh my god, what is it?" And you see his friend headless and without a hand, just kind of
Yeah.
going like
So,
that and tumbles over. And it's like, "Oh my god, this is so good." So Preston does what I would have done, and that's run. Get the
right.
hell out of there. And he runs, and all of a sudden, boom, you finally see the monster. It jumps down, it looks like from, the sky right in front of him. And this is great practical work, man. This gargoyle, because that's what it is a gargoyle. And
Yeah.
the wings and the horns on the head of it and so forth. So he's basically trying to get away from this gargoyle. He can't. And the friend that was in the bar, there was another friend in the bar, a regular, who fell
Yeah.
asleep. So he can't get back into the bar either. You finally see the gargoyle's face, and you're like, "Oh my god, he's gonna die." And
Yeah.
Preston's begging for his life. He's like, "Please don't kill me." And the gargoyle says, "I'll spare you, but the only way I'll spare you is for you to never tell anyone what happened in this night." And I was like, "Okay, this is," and they really made it a big fact to kind of zone in on that statement. The only way I'll let you live is if you promise me to never tell anyone about what you've seen tonight. So, of course, Preston says what any of us would say, and he says, I promise I won't." The creature rips at his chest and says, "Cross your heart." And I was
Yeah.
like, so again, you have these little moments of campiness, having a little bit of fun. But anyways, so he says, "Cross your heart," and then just vanishes. And this is a huge creature.
Yeah.
This is a
That
huge creature.
blew my mind when it started talking. I was not expecting that when I first seen it. It just started talking, and
Right.
they did a really good job with it too. And it was just like, whoa! It looked like it was actually talking.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's very well done, and I think it's one of it's definitely in the top, whatever we want to call it, top 10 or top 15 of practical monsters in movies at this time. It's really well done. So
Yeah.
so Preston says, "Yes, I'll never tell," and the creature, says, "Cross your heart," and just vanishes. So Preston, of course, like me, is like, "Let me get out of here." So he's running into another alley. He's looking around. It's at nighttime. And again, I think what's really cool about this segment that I really like is it's so atmospheric.
Mm.
It feels like it's the city. It feels like it's at night. There's a presence that the city has.
Oh yeah.
It's like a character in and of itself. I mean, I grew up in the
Yeah.
city, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he runs into this person, and it's like, man, and it's like there was no one else on
Yeah.
this street, you know what I mean? But he runs into this person, and this is where we get introduced to Radon Chung, who, by the way, she's another actress. There's a lot of actors and actresses, but this is another one that I wish had the opportunity to do a lot more and have a lot more
Well,
visibility.
from about 85 to 90, she did some stuff. Like she did Commando, and
Yep.
she did she did this. Let me see, what else did she do? She plays Corolla in this. She did Quest for Fire, The Principal, and
Yes.
it
Yep.
hit about the early 90s, and you just didn't see her anymore. There's quite a few that did that.
I know. It's really, really crazy. But yeah, so he runs into her, and her name is Carola, and he's basically trying to protect her, saying, "Shh, be quiet." And he pulls her over to the side and trying to hide her because of the monster. And
Yeah,
it's funny because she plays it off like, kind of, you can believe it, almost like a regular city person. Like, what are you talking about? What's going on? And so he's basically trying to um take care of her, save her. Like, "Hey, come with me. Let's get out of here. Let's leave this alley." And so they basically go back over to where his studio is because he's trying to protect her from this monster, from this gargoyle. And so they go into the studio. He's still got the cut on his chest, and he's totally like out of sorts. And she's just basically, trying to say, "Hey, well, what happened? Are you going to call someone? What are you going to do?" And he decides, yeah, I'm not gonna do that. And it's funny because everything that he does is what I would do, his instinct
Mhm.
at this point, trying to save someone who's innocent. What am I going to do? I just had this crazy interaction with something and it is totally out of this world that I can't believe I saw. But I said that I wasn't going to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
And
You
what do
take
I
no
do?
chance. You're not gonna take
Yeah,
that chance. He thinks about it, but then he's like, oh, maybe not because maybe it is watching. He just
right.
doesn't know how right he is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he even takes his shirt off to look at the cut that the monster did. It looks really good too. It's like these 3 slashes on his chest, and Carola comes into the bathroom, where he's looking at his chest and basically like, what happened, and like you said, it's like he's like right on the edge of like telling her what he saw, but he doesn't, right?
You'd want to, you would want to unload and tell somebody. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the way she played it was really cool because she's like mysterious. She's sexy, mysterious, kind, and everything. And she helps him with his wounds and everything. So, of course, she decides to stay and they have their little makeout session and so forth. And that starts their relationship, that starts their romance. And this is still like the first like 10 minutes of this
Yeah.
story, like this story was so cool because it unpacked so much in just a couple of minutes and it did it effectively. Like these little segments in these anthologies, like this one, I think is a great blueprint for, regular movies, how to,
Yes.
really tell a story so people can get invested. But, anyways,
You could
so
make a full movie out of any of them
you could
easily.
absolutely. Yeah, this one could have definitely been a full. I mean, like I said, it was a little over 30 minutes, and they
Right.
definitely could have had some other things go on with it. But you see him the next morning, which was really cool. He starts drawing
Yeah.
an image with chalk of the gargoyle. And it's almost like he has this inspiration. And this is really cool scene. Again, it's a flirty scene where Carola comes out of she comes out of nowhere. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
And he hides the drawing and she climbs up on the table. And, again, they're basically going to be a couple. And what I thought was really interesting at this point in the story is that she wants to know everything about him but he can't tell her that, and it's almost like, how
Yeah.
sometimes when you have a relationship and someone will say, well, tell me about such and such, and tell me about this, tell me about that. And sometimes you may not want to, or maybe whatever,
Yeah.
but it can almost be a test of the relationship. And that's what this was in more ways than one.
Yeah. And she's starting to care about him too. So
Yes.
it's the point where it's like she feels like he's getting ready to start saying something, and she shuts him down and says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." It starts kissing him. So she
Yes.
shuts him up because she doesn't want,
Yes.
yeah,
Yep. Absolutely. So, the thing about this story is at this point, it's about Preston's guilt. He
yeah,
goes back to the bar and he sees that the EMTs are there, the ambulance are there, and his friend who was in the bar, because the bar, they shut the bar down because his other friend was drunk, and so he basically slept inside the bar while
yeah,
Preston and the other guy were outside in the alley dealing with the gargoyle. So the friend that was locked in the bar is like, "What happened? What happened? How did this happen?" He's freaking out, and so Preston is obviously on his own. Like there's no one that he can confide in. He is absolutely alone. And so he has all this inspiration because of that night with the gargoyle and obviously with Carola. And so the story kind of goes into this huge um it's not a montage, but it's just showing how his whole life starts to take a turn for the better. He's
yeah,
got the inspiration. She has connections with the art
yeah,
people, the art world. And so now he has these exhibits where his artwork is doing well. His old agent is back on board and, and they're friends and so forth. So
right,
it's like his life has meaning again. Like, and it's really, I think it's really interesting because, whenever you see stories or movies or shows or whatever about artists, you really get a sense of how how close to the edge these people live, as
Yeah.
far as having inspiration and being successful or being
Mm.
absolutely a nobody, and living a really hard life,
Fine
you
line,
know.
and it can change like that. Yeah, either way, it
Yes.
can go good or bad. Either way.
Yep. Absolutely. So, him and Carola are together. His old friend from the bar, comes to the exhibit. They have this one scene where his old friend is basically like, "Hey, how you doing?" And it kind of reminding Preston of all those things. And it was a really cool scene
Yeah,
because again, he knows he can't say anything, and he doesn't.
yeah.
Um,
But
but
you know something, don't you? I
yeah,
know what you're
yeah,
saying. Come on, honey, let's go. He just wants to get the fuck away from.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. And there's this one scene where he has the drawing of the gargoyle that he's like, I don't know, the way James Remar plays it, you're wondering what he's going to do. Is he going to tell someone about it to relieve his
Yeah,
conscience? Because he's guilt ridden. He's guilt
right.
ridden, and he decides to hide it in a drawer. And of course, as soon as he's hiding it in the drawer, Carola comes from behind him, and is like, "What are you doing?" And so,
Yeah,
anyways, this story, what I love about this story is that it's got mystery, and it's like a lot of tension this whole time because as the character is feeling the guilt, you as the viewer are feeling the guilt, and you're wondering, what can he do? He has no
right.
one to turn to.
Yeah,
And that
because
really
he's afraid to say anything. At the same time, he feels guilty because he feels like that he's being dishonest with her, and he
yes.
feels guilty because his friend died, and and then that other poor friend of theirs, he kind of feels responsible. You know what I mean? Because he was there the whole time, and he don't even know what the hell happened. So he just,
Yes.
he's all tore up. Yeah,
Yep. He really, really is, man. So um they get married. He's successful, he's got all the connections and all that type of stuff. And they have 2 children. So it's like, okay, cool, everything's going well. At this point, as a kid, like as an adult, I understand it differently. But as a kid, I'm thinking, all right, man, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. You get this beautiful woman and all that, and just don't say anything. Keep your cool. So, anyways, they cut to 10 years later. He's obviously very successful. Like I said, they have the 2 children and they're married. The agent is like not only his best friend, but part of the family, kind of like an
Uncle
uncle to
Wyatt,
the kids.
Uncle
Yeah,
Wyatt. Yeah,
yeah. They're raking in the dough. And they show this scene where Carola is in the apartment or whatever, and there's this piece of paper sticking out from one of the drawers, and she pulls it out or rips it out, and it's like, I don't know, maybe half of a piece of paper or whatever, and it's a drawing, and you can't really tell what it is, because at this
right.
point in the story, again, this is like a 33-minute segment. So at this point in the story, we've been following these characters for whatever 15, 20 minutes, and the story is so good, you get wrapped up into it. But anyways, so she has this look on her face, and I'm just thinking to myself, well, what are they going to do? And you see the kids playing, and Preston is happy as a father, and she just has this smile on her face, kind of like well, not really a smile, but almost a look of um
Satisfaction, just happy, just pleasant,
yeah,
just she's just what's the right word?
content.
Uh, content. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. And so everything's going right. They got success, they have a family, they have a great marriage, and all of that. And so next they have this scene where they're again back on the streets, and it's the scene that's set up with the fog and the lights, and they're walking, and he's starting to tell her, he's talking about, the night that I met you, it saved my life, and all these types of things. He's kind of not telling her at this point, he's kind of using romance in there as well, but he's being honest. He's like, it was a night that changed my entire life, which it did, that night that he met her. And
Yeah,
so they find themselves back into the apartment. The agent guy was babysitting the kids. He leaves the apartment, and he's happy too. He's happy for them and all their
yeah.
success. And anyways, like, you couldn't be happier at this point.
No,
Like, this
you
is
feel
the
good about it.
Yeah, everybody's feeling good, the pinnacle of success. The agent guy is outside waiting for a taxi, and then here it goes, man. This is when the ball finally drops because he loves her so much that he feels as though he has to be completely honest with her.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, no." And he comes out with this box. He had been drawing images, and now he's coming out with this box, and you think he's gonna pull out a drawing, but instead it's like a statue,
Yeah.
that he created of the gargoyle. It
And
looks
he remembered every detail of it. You know what I mean? He had it down.
Yes.
He knew everything about it. Yeah.
Yes, every detail, and it actually looks like a really cool ass statue, by the way. I wonder whatever happened to it. And he's basically talking about how this creature killed his friend and attacked him and made him promise that he would never tell anyone about it. The l-
Mm,
and both actors are great, by the way, in this scene they are through the whole segment, because you can tell that he loves her and he wants to do the right thing, and it is the right thing, being honest with his loved one, his wife, who he loves so much. And with Ray Dawn Chung, who's playing Kerala, the look on her face is very it's interesting because it looks like it's confusion, maybe a little bit of disappointment, and you're just
yeah.
wondering what she's going to say. Now you're watching this for the first time, and I'm almost thinking to myself, is she going to leave him because had lied to her all this time, as far as not telling her about this? That's kind of the vibe that you
Yeah.
get. And it sets up for the finale, man, and this is where it's like, "Ooh, this is where it is, man," where he says, "I wanna be honest with you," and then, he kinda walks to the side of her, and then that's when she says, "You broke your promise.
Yeah.
You broke your promise. You promised you'd never tell. You
Starts getting
idiot."
pissed. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she starts yelling at him, "You promised." And then boom, just just like that, all of a sudden, her arm, like, boom, it
Yeah.
like explodes and this thing comes out of her arm. The way they're shooting it, all you can see is her arm, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden her legs and her hair and these horns that are coming out of her kneecaps and the back of her feet where her Achilles tendons are. And she's
Yeah.
like, "You promised, you idiot. I loved you." And it is
Yeah.
such a great scene. She's a beautiful woman, anyways, obviously. She pulls at her hair, and like, you still don't know what's going on
Right.
exactly at first, right? She pulls her hair down like this, and you could see this like skull or whatever. And Preston is freaking out. He's like,
Stop.
"Oh my God,
Stop.
stop.
Please quit.
Yeah, what are you doing?" And man, this transformation sequence is really
Yeah.
good. It is really, really good. You see all these things coming out of her joints, in her kneecaps, in her everything. All of a sudden, they show her face, and he's like, "Please stop, please stop." She's like, "It's too late." And then you realize what's going on. Her back rips out from behind her, and wings come out. It's the gargoyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is the gargoyle, and it's like, oh my god, it's like
Can't. You broke your vow. You know what I mean? It's like it broke the spell. It's like
yes,
that's why she wanted to. She wanted to live as a human with him because she was in love with him,
yes,
and he fucked it up by telling. It's like she can't control it. She has no control over it.
right. Yeah, it's kinda like, like those old fairy tales, like, the lover's kiss, waking up Sleeping Beauty and all that type of stuff.
Right.
Like, once he told someone, it broke that spell, and she was transforming back to what she really is, and she couldn't control it. And you hear this wail from outside of the room, and he's looking, he's like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And man, this was the part, at least for me, that really, like, this is bad, but
Yeah.
then it somehow got worse because he kind of falls onto the floor, and he looks away from the gargoyle from Kerala, and he sees his two kids are little gargoyles. The
Yeah.
look on James Remar's face says it all. He's like, "No!" And
Because
these
kids are
little
crying.
the kids
They're
are crying.
crying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're little monsters, and he's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it," and all this type of stuff, and you just feel for this character, you
Yeah.
know? And so then all of a sudden, Carola comes up to him, has the wings wrapped around him, and he's like, "I loved you." And then she says, as the gargoyle, "And I loved you too, but you broke your promise, and that sealed our fate," and
Yeah.
bites at his neck and like rips out his throat. Again, great practical work there too. And he just falls to the floor. And I'm like, are you freaking serious?
Yeah. And you got emotions going everywhere because she screams out in like pain after she does it, after she kills
Yes.
him.
Yeah, because she loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loved him. And you got the two kids, the two little monsters. And so, anyways, they don't know what's going on. And you still have Robert Klein who's outside trying to catch the taxi. So Carola takes the two kids, screaming her head off, flies up through that skylight, which is the first thing that we had seen when we
Yeah.
first met Preston in the beginning of the movie, which again, that's why this is such a neat story because it really
Yeah.
cycles it all the way around from the beginning. And so the agent, Robert Klein, he looks up to the sky like, what was that? And he hears the screaming, and he's smart enough to just say, "Nope, I'm getting in the cab. I don't want to know. It's not my business."
Yeah.
And so he does that, and all of a sudden the camera moves up from the taxi up the building, and it just pans, and then at the top of the building you see the
Yeah.
gargoyle statue, and it's right there with the two kids holding it, and that's the end of the story, man. Which it makes you think, because you go back and you think about the beginning of the film when the gargoyle was staring down through the skylight to Preston, and it's almost as if this was a destiny, for
Yeah.
that gargoyle to meet him and to love him. Maybe the gargoyle loved him beforehand
Yeah.
or whatever.
She
It's a
wants
lot
to.
of yeah, it's a lot of layers to a 33-minute segment. And
Yeah.
it's so good, man. When I first saw this movie, and you were right, the way they decided to do the order, it's so good because this is a great way to kind of give that last
Yeah.
punch. It's a
And
great
it's
segment.
satisfying. Yeah. The way they tell the stories, I think, is one of the best ways that an anthology has told it. You
Yes.
know,
Yep.
I can't imagine it being the other way around. I can imagine why people didn't leave satisfied. But when they
Yeah.
switched it this way and it ended with the gargoyle story, it was perfect. It
Yeah.
really was a really well made, well told story, well acted, all of it, man. It was really good.
Yep. And you felt so bad because you were invested in Preston, you were invested in Carola. When you saw that last image of the gargoyles, the expression on their face is sorrow.
Yeah.
So this whole story is kind of like, it's like a bummer, but it was a roller coaster to get to that point. It was well done. It's my favorite segment. When I saw it as a kid,
Yeah.
it stuck with me so much, man. It really did.
Yeah, because you want the best for them. You know what I mean? And you're
Yep.
happy that they're happy. And then when he does it, as he's telling you, you're like, no, 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 because one way or the other, it's not going to end up good when he does.
Right.
You don't know exactly how bad it's going to be. You don't realize it's going to get that bad, but you know it's not going to be good. Everything, leave well enough alone, dude. Keep your mouth shut. Deal with it.
Hmm. Yep.
It's like, yeah, yeah.
Agreed,
That
man.
like I said, I was 17 when it came out, and it made an impact on me. I seen it at 17 or 18, one more of the two, and it made an impact on me then. And I was, at 18, you're close to being grown up, but you're not quite, but you're not a kid either.
Right. Right.
So it's like, um, well, the wraparound comes to a conclusion. You hear a timer goes off, and once again she says, "My goodness, you really did save the best for last, didn't you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "No," and he tries to tell her another story, but she's like, "Well, no, it's too late." He said it's the best because it has a happy ending, and he starts telling her the story about a kid named Timmy, which you come to find out is her story, and he tells it as it's happening. He said,
Hmm.
Timmy's big brother had a paper route, and one day he got sick, and Timmy had to go out collecting for him. And she's going on with it. She's not even paying attention. She's like, well, that's nice, dear. You know, Kimmy's like, Kimmy went to this one house where this lady said, "Come on in." But when he went inside, the lady tricked him and threw him in the pantry. And the whole time he's pulling at this chain, and you can see it getting loose. Um, and she fed him cookies all day long, so he didn't
Mm-hmm.
get fat, so she could cook him and eat him. And she says, "Wait a minute, this is your story, and you can stop telling it because we both know how it ends." And he says, "No, no, no, you don't." He said, he reached in his pocket and grabbed some marbles, and he's telling it the whole story. He said, "Rolled it," and he throws them on the floor, and she slips on them. And at this time, she it's actually happening with it. She slips on the marbles, falls back, and those needles goes into her back. Well, he continued to tell the story. He said, "And if you could just get the keys," and he reaches, finally gets them, jerks the chain out. Um, and as he's coming through, she's turned around this way, trying to get the needles out, shoves her in the oven, slides
Yep.
it, slams it shut. And while she's in the oven, he grabs a cookie, he turns around, starts munching on it. He's like, "Don't you just love happy ending?" Yeah, I knew that kid when I first seen him all the time. I knew he reminded me of somebody. I just didn't realize it was going to be Joey Lawrence. I didn't realize till this time who he
Yeah.
was.
Yep. Yep. Those Lawrence brothers, man, they had their time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I almost forgot about that.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was a blossom, blossom. Yeah,
Yes. Yep.
but yeah, man. It was all told, and I loved in every segment, even the wraparound. You got really good performances. Um, it's and this was made by I think only like maybe $6 million, something like that. Yeah, it was released May 4th, 1990. It's
Mm-hmm.
93 minutes long. The budget was 6 million, and it made 16.3 million back. So
Okay.
it's I'm gonna find it's not how much you spend making a film. It's where you put that money.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
You know?
Yep. And you had so many of the same collaborators that worked on Creep Show and Creep Show 2, George Romero, and a lot of people we were talking about this backstage. I mean, this is the true Creep Show 3. We might as well just call it what it is, you know.
Yeah. I wish though. This is what I would have done. They had the Tales. When it starts, they have the Tales of Dark Side song, but it's kind of jammed up and all this. I would
Mhm.
have had it with the original Tales from the Dark Side theme, with
Yeah.
that guy narrating it at the very beginning. That's the way I would have done it. Because
Yes.
because by this time the series had been big. So
Yes.
usually you get a movie and then you get the series. On this occasion, you got the series and then the movie. So you had, I don't understand why they didn't. It was so iconic. You kind of had to. I
It
mean, don't use the
was.
same woman. Do an updated version of it, but do it like you did then with that same theme and that same guy narrating.
Yeah, yeah, and when we were kids, man, we used to watch the show, and again, that was a great show where, it's different horror stories and stuff, like Twilight Zone or Outer Limits or what have you. And you're right, that opening, man lives in a world which he, da 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 da. It's
But
creepy as hell,
yeah, but
but yeah,
yeah,
it's creepy as hell, man. Actually, I can see my DVD set of the series. It's right over
yeah,
here on the shelf. I love it. It's great. It's got some cheese in there, but it was a
yeah.
great TV show. But you're right, that opening is so iconic, and the
How do you
music,
not
it was
use it
creepy.
in the movie? How do you
I
not use it
know.
in the movie? I never
I
understood
know.
that. But hey, But yeah,
Yep.
the director was John Harrison, which also played. He did a lot of work and he's a really good writer. He did a lot of work for Romero. He was
Hmm.
also the screwdriver zombie that got the screwdriver in his ear in Dawn of the Dead, and
Yes.
he's the one that directed this. And of course, you had Richard P. Rubenstein, which was a producer that Romero used a lot.
Hmm.
The cinematography was by Robert Draper. He did a great job. Um, and then, like I said, it was K&B, Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, and Robert Kurtzman who did the
Hmm.
effects. So great people in the right spots all around here.
I agree. Yeah, a lot of talented people in front of and behind the camera. And it's interesting because when you think about it, and again, thinking of this as kind of like the quote unquote true Creep Show 3. All three of those movies, because it was basically 82, 87, and this was Tales from Darkside was 1990, and they all have that common uh tone and the way that the stories happen and all of that. Um that's pretty amazing. Three movies like that. And you're talking about what, a total of seven, like 11 stories in total, something like that, 10, 11 stories in total. Five, two, or three,
Yeah,
8, 4. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Wait a minute.
so I mean, that's pretty cool, man, for movies, to
Yeah,
be able to do that. So many amazing stories. But yeah, this one is a favorite of mine. I really love this one a lot. I really, really do.
yeah, yeah. When I was talking to you about doing it, and I sent you like 10 different titles, and I said whichever one you want to do, and he said Tales from the Dark Side. I was like, cool, that'll work.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did.
I knew you'd pick a good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Um,
when you sent all the possibilities, and there's a lot of great ones, and there's still a lot great ones for you to do. But as soon as you threw out the possibilities, I knew right then. I probably sent you that message back so fast. It's
yeah,
like
you
Tales
didn't
from the
hesitate
Dark
on
Side.
that, and and then I sent you the message giving you the option. I was like, okay, well, do you want the wraparound and Cat from Hell, or do you want Lot 249 and Lover's Vow? And
Yeah,
it took you about 10 seconds. You was right back going, hey, I'll take the first and the third. So
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
that'll work. That'll work, man.
Yeah, this is a good one. Like you said, they don't do them like this anymore. And I wish, like, we're big fans of it, obviously. And there's a lot of people in the industry that are big fans of this type of stuff too. I mean, you still got Greg Nicotero, who's doing fantastic work. I wish that there was some, filmmaker, that could do, more movies like this. I think they're so fun and they have a charm to them. They have a really cool charm to them. Like, you can watch it and you can get the horror, but you also have the story and the charm and a
Yeah.
little bit of the fun. There's a little bit of fun in there too. And it's a really tough balance to have. But these types of movies like this, and again, I always keep going back to the Creep Show films, but that's because I love them so much as well. But they're great movies and they're a fun time. I just wish that we still had, filmmakers that were doing stuff like this every once in a while. I mean, obviously you have different phases, but it
Yeah.
feels like we're at a time when it'd be nice to have some stuff like this.
The industry, and the whole genre really misses people like George Romero. They
Yes.
really do because King and Romero is the ones that did the one that I did, the Cat from Hell. Um,
Yes.
King wrote the short story, and then Romero did the wrote the screenplay for this short.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, you really miss him, and just different little people, man. Stuart Gordon,
Yes.
Toby Hooper, Wes
Yeah.
Craven. I mean,
Yep.
well, William Friedkin. We're really missing these guys, man.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
I guess
true. I
the
mean,
Yankees are different. They don't have the same fun as those guys do.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, when you talk about the late 70s throughout the 90s, all these people you just mentioned collaborated with each other in different ways. Sam Raimi as well. Sam Raimi's in that list too. Like, and if they
Yeah,
didn't collaborate with each other, they gave each other's work winks and nods in their movies. There was always kind of a wink and a nod. There would be characters that had the last name Carpenter, or you know what I'm
yeah,
saying, or
yeah,
or Romero, and it was really cool because all of these legends, these are icons to us, and rightly so. They had a respect for each other, but they also collaborated with each other on a fairly regular basis. And you're right. I think that the genre and the industry do miss them. And of course, we just lost Roger Corman, who, I
oh
mean,
yeah,
he's the tree in the industry that had all these branches. Everything came from Corman.
yeah.
Everything,
He had his finger in everything for many
everything.
movies,
All of
one way
these,
or another.
all of these artists, I mean, all the way up to the most popular of all of them, whoever that look at Cameron. Cameron started with Corman. If we didn't have
Yeah,
Roger Corman, we wouldn't have the Terminator and Aliens and
yeah,
Avatar and all of these
yeah,
things. So I say all that to say that this was a special time in horror, and these were great artists, these were great filmmakers, and I can only hope and pray that we get into another cycle where there's a group of talented, filmmakers that can, do these types of things because these were great films. These were great projects on TV and on film.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of good, really good filmmakers. You know, you got your Jordan Peele's, and you know what I mean. You got, but they just don't seem to have the same fun. They don't have the horror mixed with a little funny poke here and there. They just
Yeah,
without making it goofy. You know,
right.
they was really masters of that. And I love a lot of the horror now, but to me, a lot of it just feels so serious all the time. And that
Hmm.
sounds kind of hypocritical of me because I'm not a big Army of Darkness fan. I
Yeah,
thought that went too far. But I like the little poke, like he was saying with the gargoyle, going across your
mhm,
heart, like just little things like that. Or
yeah,
Christian Slater having so much fun with the electric knife,
yes,
or the cat going down his throat rather than clawing him and ripping his throat open.
yes,
And
yep,
giving the old man a heart attack because it fucked him up so bad. You know what I mean? It's just
yep,
little pokes like that. I thought
yeah.
they were really good at that. The filmmakers, as good as they are, don't necessarily have that now.
Yeah, yeah, it's like they've really moved away from that type of, and of course, a lot of this stuff we're talking about, Stephen King, Romero, Carpenter, all of these guys, they were big fans of the EC comics, the old school
Yes.
way that these stories were told. So really these movies were homages to an older time. We're talking about an homage to like the 50s.
They
So
all do. They all reference that. They'll all talk about that's where the roots came from.
right,
That and the
right.
early Howard Hawks films and stuff like that from the 50s. That and those
Yes.
comics is where they came from.
Right, right, right. So I guess, for filmmakers today, and I guess when I think about it, there are a lot of filmmakers of today that reference back to the 80s. So that's kind of like their
Yeah.
EC Comics days. But the one thing that they don't have as much, or at least in my experience of seeing stuff, is like they don't always have that same charm that the 80s had,
Right.
or what
Yeah.
have you. I mean, sometimes they do. I'm not saying all, but I'm just saying in general, because, a few minutes ago, you named off 6 or 7 filmmakers who collectively, over the period of 25, 30 years, created so many things that were great horror projects, but also had fun, little winks and
Yeah.
nods without
Yeah.
being
That's what I
goofy.
was saying. Yeah, they had a good time doing it. And you can hear
Yeah,
the people that was in these still talk about today how much fun it was making these. You know,
right.
the
Yep.
actors and everybody involved.
Hmm.
But they look back, and when they look back with a smile. Like they talk about Dawn of the Dead.
Hmm.
Every one of them, just to this day, Galen will look back and she smiles when she talks about it.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like that might be what's missing. You it's like they didn't mean to put any funny into it, but they was having so much fun that they couldn't help but to throw in some fun here and there.
Right, right. And also the fact that a lot of this was bare bones situation, guerrilla style filmmaking, kind of on your own and just, taking chances, staying up way too late and then trying to do it all again the next day, and you get that camaraderie. You think about, when Carpenter did The Thing, all of those guys, Kurt Russell and Keith David, all those guys, they were together for months,
Yeah.
as a group. Like they really got to get that chemistry together as actors, became friends, and on camera it translated into the film. Like it was
Sure.
believable. You know what I mean?
Oh,
They just
definitely.
they they weren't just called in and flew into the set for like a couple days and like said, okay, let's do our parts. They really spent time together, camped up together. So it was I guess it's just that it was a different time of filmmaking, you know.
Yeah. One thing that comes to my mind, real quick is Escape from New York. The weird guy. That, all this that they call Romero. That was a
Yes.
direct nod, and he had him look like zombie-ish. A direct
Yes.
nod to George Romero. That was him. His love for it.
Yep.
That dude just kills me.
Yep.
You come back again, he dies.
Yeah.
That dude kills me.
Yeah, I love
Romero's
that
great,
scene.
man.
Yeah, he was great, and they did that all the time, man. They had those winks and nods all the time to each other, and I thought that that was really, really cool, for them to just to support each other, show a lot of the respect and admiration that they had together. It was really, really cool.
Now I'm glad that we're collaborating a little more again, like we used to, back in the day, man.
Yeah,
We
man.
had a really great watch on the Diary.
Yes.
We've been talking about doing survival. I would love to have you back to do another anthology in the
Yeah,
future if you're interested. Um,
absolutely.
oh yeah, man, I've always enjoyed collaborating with you. All this shit. You know,
Same here, man.
um, what do you got going on, man? I know you got tons of shit going on always.
Yeah, just kind of regular stuff, just trying to keep doing our live streams, a couple times a week, and just trying to have some fun with that, and just really, it's funny because when we have these type of discussions, it always makes me not only nostalgic, but it kind of makes me take a step back and just look at horror, and look at myself as a horror fan, my own journey. And it always gives me this, it's almost like a little bit of a, yeah, which
Yeah,
is cool.
to be
And
kids again. Yeah, it could be like
y-
kids again. It's just funny,
yeah,
man.
yeah, so for me, I'm still just working on that, and just doing just doing my regular stuff. But I would love to continue, as a content creator, to try to shed a light on projects like this,
Right,
as much as I can. And I do try to do that. But it's like, for some people that weren't around, maybe from our generation, or
right.
maybe haven't heard of some of these movies, it's like I wish I could just, pass on all of
Yeah,
this knowledge, and the adoration for this stuff, so that, for other horror fans that I know could enjoy it, and obviously I think we all try to do that in our own way as content creators. But yeah, man,
yeah.
just doing my regular thing, and hopefully we get a chance to do Survival of the Dead soon, and
Yeah.
finish out this retrospective, and to George Romero, who, the more I think about him, the more I think about his work, even outside of the Dead movies. I'm just like, wow, horror. It was cool back then. It really was, like you said.
Yeah, I wish I could take some of the younger people and back to when I first seen these, like in 1990 when we seen this, or in
Hmm.
in the early 80s when when we were seeing Twilight Zone the movie and Creep Show and all those. It's
Yep.
just it was really cool to see them back then. It was a totally different vibe. I wish I could, and that's kind of what we try to do when we do this. We're doing it the best. We're bringing them to that time the best we can, but
Yeah.
it's still it's not the same as actually being there. It was really special, and it was a really cool feeling. It really was.
Yep. Agreed.
Um, yeah, hey Cal, how you doing? Hey Cal Spark.
Hey.
Let me catch up real quick here. Chris, hey Chris, what's going on, everybody? Um, yeah, I'm gonna be selfish here, and I'm gonna play this trailer for this again. But first of all, I got some I got somebody that wants to say something here. Here, check this out.
Congratulations, Doc. Will there be a honeymoon following? Watch it there, Connie. You've got a dangling participle. He's
Yeah,
found the
another one
right
here.
one.
Check this out.
Oh, Dr. Poole. Dr. Poole? Hello? Get back in the room.
That was good, man.
Yeah, that's hello, Doctor Poole.
Yeah,
Oscar is so underappreciated. Oscar is fucking hilarious, man.
it is. Yep, it is. I agree.
Underappreciated. Stallone does so much better in these comedies than what people act like. Like Rhinestone, you had some stuff. Rhinestone, absolutely excellent.
Yep.
From fucking yeah. Oh man, uh, Drinkenstein. Yeah.
Yeah. Drinkenstein. Yep.
Well, here's a trailer from upcoming Ranking Evil. It will be out really soon. I'm baking a lot on this. This is the most ambitious project I've ever done. Where I'll be ranking the level of my it's a scale of 1 to 12 on how evil each of these people are, and I'll be putting everybody that we talk about in there, be able to see my point of view, where they rank on, are they lower on the scale or are they higher on the scale, and why, and I'll be explaining why and how.
Nice.
Yeah, that's just a little tease of it. But yeah, they're going to be episodes between like 15, 20 minutes long, and everybody gets the idea when they finally see them. So hopefully everybody will catch that, man. Something I'm really proud of and really ambitious and passionate about.
Nice. That's cool, man. I'm happy for you. That it sounds awesome too. So
Hopefully it's as good. I think the series is even better than that teaser trailer. I'm satisfied with the teaser trailer, but I want to
hmm
be more than satisfied with this. It's something I really put a lot of love into. It's why
hmm
for a week or two I haven't done as much content because I've really been laser focusing on this.
Yep.
So I'm open, man. I'm open. Thanks everybody for joining us, man. I hope you guys had a good time checking this out. It's been a word, thank you.
Yeah.
Bruiser was cool. Oscar, yeah. Yeah, it's so bad it's good. It's just hilarious, man. It's
hmm
ridiculous. That's fucking hilarious. Alex Stallone
Yep.
does great ridiculous humor.
I think so too. Yep.
But yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thank you again for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Anytime. It was a lot of fun. And we always, the thing about these conversations, we always go into interesting other areas too. And, when you're a horror fan and you have the passion for it, that's what makes it fun, man. That's what makes it fun.
You can tell who the real fans are and aren't. You know what I mean? Like us, we get together
Yes.
and do it. We're like little kids when we get together and do it.
Right. Yep. It's
But
true.
everybody take it easy. This has been Night from Nightwatch Zone. Joining me. Thank you again very much. Everybody
Yep.
have a great day. Much love to you. And don't forget, I am Gorpho and you are not.
Peace.
Because I am agoraphobe and you are not.